Yo, what up everyone? Amir here, owner of Rapping and Snacking, getting into another Hot Takes video. Hot takes that y'all put on my Instagram. And I'm just going to go through them and see if I agree, disagree, whatever it is. Hit me up on Instagram and TikTok at Rapping and Snacking. And just dropped a Spotify playlist as well, so I'm going to link all of it below. Appreciate y'all as always. So let's go ahead and get into this first hot take. Okay. Benji Collector. This is from Benji Collector. E40 is the greatest storyteller / lesson giver of all time. You know what? Yeah, that's probably a hot take. I think when it comes to storytelling, it's funny because I feel like there's a lot of rappers who do give excellent stories and excellent concept tracks, and for some reason, whenever it comes to storytelling, I usually only see the name Slick Rick brought up, and maybe it's because he had an album called, The Art of Storytelling, and he had the album The Great Adventures of Slick Rick, and, his stories are like the first that come to mind, but there's so many other people with incredible storytelling capabilities and concept tracks, etc., and you can really name, pretty much any rapper out there, and they have a story song. That's just pretty much how it is, unless they're super one-dimensional and don't. But Slick Rick, he's obviously great. I wouldn't give him the greatest storytelling nod, though, just because he only had 4 albums or so. So to kind of give it to E40, for example, E40 has tons of stories pretty much on every single album. He's got a bunch of them, and I don't remember off the top of my head, but he probably has over 20 albums. He has a lot. And not all of it is the best, but he doesn't really have bad material either as far as the whole album's worth. He usually packs a few punches on every album at minimum. So E40, as far as the greatest, I kind of struggle with that. I'd probably disagree with that, but he has so many great ones, and he should be revered as one of the best storytellers in hip-hop history. And he's also important to note, which is a little unrelated, he did stay true to his style, which is pretty admirable. He was probably getting made fun of a lot with some of the things he was saying and some of the things he did, but E40 is definitely revered as one of the greatest to ever do it as of now. But I'm sure coming up back then, people also made fun of him. I remember there was that Biggie article where he was dissing a few people, one of these magazines, that they may have been from the UK, but they're asking Biggie how he felt about certain West Coast artists, and then when it came to E40, he gave him a 0 out of 10 or a 1 out of 10. He said E40 is whack or whatever. Then there was that confrontation. Then Rasheed Wallace did diss E40. It was this whole thing. People were dissing and dissing and dissing. So E40 stayed true to himself. He's one of the best. I agree with you in the sense that he's one of the greatest, but the greatest, I don't know about that. Next up, we got this person named Union. Method Man is top 5 MCs. I disagree. He's not even the best in the Wu-Tang Clan. I'd put Ghostface as the best rapper in the Wu-Tang Clan. And Method Man, too, I may piss some of y'all off, but I don't even think he has a classic album. I don't think so. I think he's got some good albums. Tikal, I wouldn't call it a classic. Unfortunately, the original one got lost in the flood, and then he had to redo it, and you can tell, some of it, you can tell he was, a little uninspired, a little lazy. Still a dope album, but classic? No. Then with, Judgment Day, the Tikal 2000, I thought that was pretty good. It's packed with a ton of skits. It's 20 whatever tracks, 27, 28, whatever it is. Dope album, classic? No. As far as features, Method Man is really dope. I think when it comes to a track where he's just on it, he always delivers, and sometimes he does just better than the people who featured him on the song. He's definitely someone who you don't want on your track list if you're scared of getting bodied, because there's a good chance he's going to body you. But is he top 5 material? No. Is he one of the greats? Of course. Is he from one of the best rap groups of all time? Of course. Unfortunately, his solo discography is nowhere near top 5 material, and like I said, I'd take Ghostface's discography way over his, and I'd probably take Raekwon's over his too. I'd take their discographies over. Would I prefer Ray or Meth on a track? Like in their primes, I'd probably go with Meth, but at the same time, top 5, no. And that's just, we're just talking about Wu-Tang. We're not even talking about people in other parts of New York or in Texas or in Tennessee or in California, whatever. So I'll disagree with that union. Next up, we got someone named Ruthless267. This is a good one. Actually, I did prepare for this. Usually these are off the dome, but this one I did prepare for. This person says, The Chronic is the best and most important album across all genres. So I have to first admit that I don't listen to... I mean, I listen to other genres, don't get me wrong, but I'd be lying if I said I listen to them all the time. I'm primarily a hip-hop head. I primarily listen to rap music, so I can't speak on the importance of something from rock and roll or something from country or something from, disco or whatever. I can't get into all of that. I just would be lying if I said I could. So the fact that this person said across all genres is a little tricky, because I'm sure Michael Jackson's Thriller is far more influential and it's the best-selling album of all time. I'm sure the Beatles have released something more influential. I'm sure maybe even Metallica have done... I'm sure there's a lot of people who've done a lot of things with just polarizing influence. And that's why I'm going to clearly just disagree with this. But even in terms of hip-hop, right? I mean, I think The Chronic is definitely one of the most influential albums ever made, and it's one of my favorite albums ever made. But even in a hip-hop standpoint, I'd say, it's definitely gets like an honorable consideration to be the most influential. But when you think about it, we have albums, and I just pulled a couple to the side here. Like one being like Licensed to Ill by the Beastie Boys. This has to be up there. Not only were Beastie Boys, white, right? But on top of that, like for them to make an album, for it to go diamond is wild. For Rick Rubin to be involved just for everything, then involving rock as well as hip-hop, that was clearly influential. We can even throw in like Run DMC. We get albums like that Dre worked on, like Marshall Mathers LP, highly influential. But then we can get into a little more specific stuff. Like we can even go like down the 2 Live Crew route with like As Nasty As They Want to Be. This was literally deemed legally offensive. They had to go to court for this album. It was a really wild story if you want to read up on just this album alone. And this was the first album to go platinum in the South and the only one to go platinum in the 80s from the South. So that's wild. Then because of this, Luke, his Band in the USA album, was the first album ever with the parental advisory box, which is crazy. So someone may be in the comments and fact check me that there are some albums before that had parental advisory on the cover, which is true, which is why I brought up this Ice-T Rhyme Pays. On this hype sticker, it says explicit lyrics parental advisory. However, the parental advisory box, the one that's pretty much on every album that you see these days, the first one to ever rock that was Uncle Luke's Band in the USA. And best believe a lot of it had to do with this 2 Live Crew album. Then you can even go to other parts of influence in hip-hop, and you get something like Biz Marquis's I Need a Haircut with the track Alone Again. Because of that, sampling laws changed forever in hip-hop. That and other songs as well, but that being one of the main ones. Hence why Biz Marquis's next album was the All Samples Cleared, with him looking like the judge with the gavel and everything. Like, there are so many influential, important albums that maybe didn't even sell the most, but they have their stamp in music. You can really go so many ways, and this is just like a little sample of just stuff that I pulled up. But I mean, there's so many. The Chronic, like I said, one of my favorite albums ever, definitely one of the most influential, especially with what it did for LA hip-hop, what it did for hip-hop as a whole, what it did for G-Funk. I mean, there's no disputing how great it is. Most influential in hip-hop? I don't know. Most influential of all genres? Definitely not. Next up, we got someone, Yorik Pelkmans. He's saying Hopsin is underrated. He's better than 90% of the rap stars out there. I'm going to do a hard disagree on this. There was a time where I actually did listen to Hobson. It was like earlier in his career. I never really liked the Gazing at the Moonlight album and stuff like that, but I did like the Raw album with the terrible cover art where he's Saw, but it's, Raw. And I did enjoy it. One thing I liked about Hobson was that he wrote his own stuff, he produced his own music, and he also had, if I recall, he directed his own music videos at a time, if I recall. So I thought that was pretty dope. But he did quite a few corny things. Some of his bars are just like too corny, too like unwitty. I don't know, man. It's just very weird. I think when I was younger, I especially I minded a little bit less, but then when I grew older, I was like, yeah, it's just not really my style. I think around Knock Madness, when that came out, I was like, okay, this is the last Hobson album I'm buying because I'm just not really a fan like that. And yeah, I think he had a few good songs here and there, but better than 90% of the rappers out now. I'm going to disagree. He has talent, it's just not my style, to be honest with you. Next up, we got someone named Mario Molinari 5 saying Kanye and Kendrick are top 5 of all time. It's like I want people to be a little more specific by what they mean, and it's always tricky when you throw someone in like Kanye, who is not only a rapper but also a producer, and he's pretty much, now he's known a little bit more as a rapper, which when he was stepping on the scene, he was known more as a producer, so that's like the funny thing. And not only that, now he's also known as like a cultural icon and like the guy with the shoes and the Gap deals and like all these other things. So Kendrick and Kanye, like Kendrick, only people associate him as a rapper, so that's interesting. Kendrick, I'm going to say no way is he top 5 all time. No way. I think he's dope, but top 5 all time, no. I'd be pretty set on that one. Kanye, top 5 all time, I mean, no. If we're talking about a rapper, no way. If we're talking about producer, I can totally see why someone would say that. I wouldn't be mad at it. I think he's extremely influential. He has such incredible music, not only for himself, but what he's done in his early stages with Rockefeller, what he did later on with multiple artists. I think he's just clearly shown why he's one of the best. And even in terms of innovation, I think he's really shown it just throughout his career. But to say top 5 all time, if we're talking about his rapper, no. If we're talking about discography, I'd entertain it. I would entertain that as far as discography, because whether you like him as a rapper or not, some of his albums, especially like pre Life of Pablo in particular, but you can maybe even count Life of Pablo, like pre that, he had some incredible albums that he produced and that he made, and the themes and concepts that he came up with are just wild. Kendrick also, he has some of those too, right? He has some incredible stuff, but not enough to be in a top 5 situation, in my opinion. Kanye, as far as the discography is concerned, I mean, I'm not mad at it. I'm not going to say so, but if we're talking about just from a pure discography standpoint, I wouldn't yell or be confused or cause a ruckus about that one. So shout out to Mario for that one. Next up, we got a funny one. This one is from VedTawari314. I had actually replied to this one on Instagram because I knew this one would cause some controversy. This guy said, Mach Hommy has the best discography in hip-hop. So that's the definition of a hot take right there. I mean, that is as hot as it can probably get. I remember when I posted this, a lot of people were outraged. I got a ton of replies. People were like, no way, this guy's smoking crack. What's he on? Blah, blah, whatever. And then people were like, I'm a Mach Hommy fan, and this is ridiculous. I'm like, bro, not even Mach Hommy would say that. You know what I mean? Like, that's wild. And I'm be honest with you, I don't know a lot of his music. I know some of it. I've listened to some of it. Some I like, some I'm like, okay. But if you're talking about someone who's been in hip-hop for maybe 10 years, from what I've seen, it seems like a little less than 10 years. Looks like his first project was 2013, but I didn't do like a whole deep dive, so there might be some super independent underground stuff that maybe I missed. But anyways, around 10 years, automatically pretty much disqualifies you from having the best discography in hip-hop. I mean, there's people who've been in it for 20 years longer than you, And not only that, like, longevity isn't everything, but it's something, right? And he doesn't have that. A lot of his projects are released within months of each other. And that's kind of like, I feel like a lot of music now, a lot of people just, it doesn't have staying power. So a lot of people, they'll listen to something and they'll listen to it for a week. They'll listen to it for a month. They'll listen to it for maybe 2 weeks. The real test is when your album is 2 years old, 10 years old, 15 years old, so we can see how it lasts after that amount of time. Because, like I was just talking about in the Chronic take, the reason why that album is so influential and so important is because, one, it was so big for the time, but people are still playing it today. You still hear, Dre just did the Super Bowl, man. Like, and a lot of it was because of how popular he came from the Chronic and how good that album was, right? Like, you can't just say Mach Hommy is the best discography in hip-hop, and his discography is barely breathed any air, man. Like, it's just like a ridiculous thing to say. Like I said, I haven't heard all this stuff, so I'm a little biased here in that sense. I don't have the full take and all that, but from what I heard, I can tell you that I would just so disagree with that. I think, and this is not me to attack this person or people who think like that, but I think if you say something like that, in my opinion, you've probably only listened to this amount of music. You would probably not listen to as much music as, like, I feel like if you've listened to more music, you would never say something like that. Like, you wouldn't put him leaps and bounds over someone like Scarface. You wouldn't put him leaps and bounds above someone like even Kanye West's discography, or even like Freddie Gibbs we can talk about right now, who's also like a rapper who's rapping now and rapped over 10 years ago, 15 years ago. He's been rapping for a little minute. Like, I don't know. I thought that was kind of wild. I'd like to see y'all takes on that because, like I said, I haven't listened to all this stuff, but from what I've heard and just from how I'm seeing how he releases music, and I'm going to go ahead and that's going to be a no from me. But very interesting. We all have opinions and they should all be heard. So let me know what y'all think of these hot takes. Hit me up on Instagram and TikTok at Rappin' and Snackin'. Buy a shirt down there. Hit me up on Spotify. Click an ad because it pays me and it costs you nothing. Appreciate y'all as always. I'm out of here.